Please help me welcome the CEO and co-founder of Bluebridge, the CEO and co-founder of Emplify, Santiago Jaramillo.
So here, you remember 1995, anybody? Yeah, Tiger Woods was a little kid winning his first tournament. Any fans in the crowd, right? So that was going on back then, and mobile phones look like that, right? It seems like such a long time ago, but it still feels like yesterday. But a lot has happened since 1995 in our workforce. And here's what's actually happened. Back in 1995, we had 50% boomers still in the workforce. You fast forward 20 years, 2015, that's now 34% millennials. You even start to have some post-millennials in there. And so the workforce has gone a complete transformation in just 20 years, generationally speaking. And why does that matter? That matters because baby boomers stayed in their role an average of 7 years, right? Gen Xers did 5 years, and millennials are now average tenure of millennials in companies is 2 years. And why does that matter? A couple of reasons why that matters. First, cost. So on average, it costs a company 150% of somebody's salary to replace them. It's not just the cost, it's also the time expended. So when you think about the number of open days that a position is out there, the cost of having a position go unfilled, a position not having anybody, other team members having to pick up the slack for those other team members. Never before have we had such a market for competitive talent before. And so when we think about that, it's not just time and cost, it's also brand reputation, right? Nobody wants to work for a revolving door, a company that can't retain its best employees. When those employees leave, they take that institutional knowledge, that tacit knowledge, and it goes out the door, and the company's reputation as an employer, their employer brand suffers. And so because of these three costs, we really care about employee engagement. And employees want to stay. In fact, if you look at highly engaged employees are 87% less likely to leave their companies than their disengaged counterparts. So there's a very sort of specific construct that is called employee engagement. And this thing, employee engagement, is what we feel every day in the morning. It's the difference between us waking up and putting sort of the motions into the job, doing the bare minimum to get by because we don't believe in our employer, we don't believe in their values, we don't feel connected to the mission and purpose. Contrast with a highly engaged employee, somebody who's passionate about what they do, who believes in the mission and purpose of their employer, and who strives daily to live out those values and to help the employer achieve that mission and vision. If we can reach employees, if employees can want to be engaged, then there's got to be a better way to help retain employees. And we think the primary way to go about that is by focusing on improving employee engagement. And so the reason why that matters is because we have an engagement crisis in our hands. The best, most optimistic stat out there is that only 30% of employees are engaged with their company and their workforce. And that matters a lot because it hits the bottom line. So Harvard Business Review and some other folks, the Dale Carnegie Institute, benchmarked the lowest 25th percentile engaged companies. So these are companies that are sort of on the bottom end of engagement. And then they looked at the metrics and the business financials of highly engaged companies in the top quartile. And they compared and contrast specific things about those businesses. And they found that disengaged companies had 20% lower productivity, 50% higher turnover rate, and a third the operating margin. So literally, the operating margin fell from 27% for highly engaged companies to 9% operating margin for those disengaged. And so to engage employees, we must meet them where they're at. And where are they? Well, we're on our smartphones, right? That analysts look at this graph, and they call this situation the post-PC era. I'm not sure if you knew that, but like the era of the PC is gone, right? We live primarily in a mobile world, and smartphones are outpacing PCs 10-1 from a new sales perspective. And how are we using our smartphones? Back in 2013, we were spending 80% of the time in apps and 20% in the mobile web. You fast forward a year, you fast forward a year, and you fast forward to this year. We're now spending 90% of our time inside of our smartphones, inside of mobile apps. And so the solution we created was a mobile app, meeting employees where they're at to help them engage with their company. And so this is what we do. These is your employees' smartphones, and right, we have an app for every area of our life, right? How many of you have like an allergy app, right? We like literally have an app just for allergies. We have an app for our professional connections, that's LinkedIn. We have our app for our friends, that's Facebook. Yet we don't really have a work app. Yet it's the majority of our waking hours we spend at work. Yet there's not really a place, a home, an employee home, a place for us to engage with the communication and content that's available to us that the company should be providing. And so here's how we help employee engagement with Emplify. The first way that we help is we solve alignment problems. And so this is employees aligning around the values and the goals and the strategy of an organization, right? We all walk into our jobs, we sit in front of our computer maybe, and we figure out what's the most important thing I can do today. Right? If we're not aligned, we can't answer that question accurately. If we're really aligned, we know what the priorities are for the company, we know how to act, our values, then we can be aligned with the company. Second is communication, communicating key company information and resources, connecting team members to foster deeper relationships, and discovering what drives employee engagement. It's not just an employer to employee. Actually, the most important part of that dynamic is the employee to employer relationship. How are we seeking feedback? How are we asking questions? How are we understanding what's the most important things that we can do to help engage employees by providing them a better employee experience? So I want to share with you just a few examples of how we're helping customers, many of them indie-based, with their top employee engagement challenges, ultimately helping them improve their employee engagement and their employee retention. So T2 Systems, anyone heard of them? Yeah? Awesome company, parking technology company, and they spend a lot of time at the exec and boardroom level figuring out what are the goals of our company. And they figure out the goals so that they can tie those goals back to the individual, like Ade was talking about, so that they feel like they're part of this more connected vision and they understand what they can do in their daily life to move the business forward. And so what they do before, they spend hours and hours in the boardroom figuring out their top priorities, and they spent such little time actually figuring out how to deliver those messages, those goals to the employees. They would have a quarterly meeting, right? They would go through a slide, but then the next day, did folks actually retain that information? Did folks have quick access to those strategies and goals? And so what they did, they put them right in the app. So create a consistent quality customer experience, develop key product initiatives. If you go in here, you can access more information about each of those goals. And they have 284 employees, and they're getting 3,000 sessions every single month. And so employees are going in time and time and again, figuring out on a daily basis, what's the most important thing I can do today to help move the business forward. That provides involvement and awareness around goals, and that makes employees feel like they're part of the larger vision, that they're helping accomplish the T2 mission in the marketplace. The second awesome story that I like to talk about is Main Street. Before, they didn't have a great way of centralizing all the information. How many of you have like a bookmark folder in your browser just to keep all the links that you have to access for your company, right? Before we got this app at Bluebridge, I spent 1 hour accessing my health benefits. And I didn't have a better way to do it. Now we have it under 3 seconds. They have their holiday and PTO schedule, insurance benefits, 401k plan, travel policies. This app is becoming the single place for the employee that they list their key communication and information in there. They got 100% employee adoption on the first day. And they were able to, the CEO is no longer sending email memos. He's only sending push notification messages. The last push notification message that he sent out via their app got 273 opens and 10% click-through rate. When you look at 134% employees open that on average more than 2 times per employee. And so we're seeing how push notifications become the best, most effective way to cut through the clutter, cut through the noise of all the company communications and actually reach employees with the most important company messages. First Person is another awesome company. They have 62 employees. They've had 4,200 sessions in 2 months. And they used to send, again, on Mondays, a CEO newsletter. They're now getting an 86% open rate on push notifications. So they stopped sending that newsletter because it's just not the most effective way to communicate with employees. They also have 100% employee adoption, and one of the recent quotes, "It's so helpful to have everyone's number at a moment's notice, so I'm able to call, text, or even check their employee address." What's really driving those 4,200 sessions is this staff directory here. So you've got a photo-based staff directory with name and title, and that's really key during onboarding. I'm not sure if you've ever started a new job, probably all of us. Have you ever been intimidated to meet folks, right? To feel connected, to feel part of the tribe? It's really not that easy to meet folks. And so this has been an amazing tool even for me at Bluebridge. As we have more than 50 employees now, I can go into somebody's staff profile and see what their favorite candy is, see what their favorite hobby is, see what school they went to, and have really quick access to a text message, to a text phone number, or to an email, and understand what they do at Bluebridge. And so being able to have that staff directory profile within 3 touches is really incredible. And then I want to talk about Discover, which is this idea of asking employees what matters most to them. So we had some extra budget at Bluebridge and at Emplify at the end of Q1. We did really well with our sales. And we were an hour in talking about how we were going to spend this money on employees. And we were saying, no, this is going to go sort of the most bang for the buck. This is going to be the best thing we could do for employees. And somebody else said, yeah, this is going to be the best thing for employees. And we all kind of looked at each other and we said, why don't we just ask employees? Maybe that'll help us decide. And so we did. We said, hypothetically, if we had a little extra money to spend on you, how would you like it spent? And we sent it through our platform through something called a quick poll. Have you ever seen an ESPN poll? You have to fill it out before it tells you the response. And so employees said, almost all of them said, implement a 401k match, and we were about to spend it on snacks and food. And so that was a great lesson that we learned, to seek employee feedback. But most importantly, it's not just about asking. It's about communicating the actions that we take as a company from the feedback that we receive. And so we have another section in the app where we say suggestions implemented, and we share back with employees all of the things, the actions, and changes that we've made based on the feedback and hearing their voice and what matters to them. And so far, we've been really live with the Bluebridge employee engagement, which is now called Emplify, since January. In our first quarter of sales, it became more than half of our new sales. And so we're super excited to launch Emplify as a standalone brand for our employee engagement efforts. We've signed up the city of Fishers, a Steady Serve, an awesome tech startup here in town. Which, you ever eaten their sandwiches? Pretty good. Molly Maid, RT Moore, MedExcel, Indiana Donor Network. Over 26 companies are using Emplify to engage with their employees in a native branded mobile app. We just launched last week. We were featured in the Wall Street Journal, which was awesome for our new SEO, for our new site. Inside Indiana did a bit on us, and we're really excited that our customers are having some amazing success with our platform. We want to be the world leader in employee engagement, measurement, and improvement. And we're going to do it right here from Fishers. Last thing I want to sort of share here is Todd and I are writing a book. This is actually the first time we are showing the cover. It's going to come out November, December of this year. Wiley Publishing approached us, and they literally wanted us to write the book on employee engagement. So it's called AGILE Employee Engagement, How to Run a Modern Workplace to have a really lasting culture, not just business success, but doing it the right way with people first in mind. And that's exactly what we want to help employers with. And we're super excited to share more. If you have any questions, there's 3 gentlemen here today. Jason, where are you at? Jason, right there. We've got Chip. Chip, where are you at? Right there. And we've got Chris. Right there. And so if you have any questions, they have a green tag. Please ask them. Please come up to me afterwards. We'd love to share more about how we're helping companies improve employee engagement. Thank you very much.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
I know our sharks have questions. I know Kristen's going to kick us off. Don't take it easy on this guy.
Todd is hereby banned from Q&A. He's up to mischief. Yes.
Santiago, so this is exciting. Our organization's very diverse in terms of age, so I'm curious to know, how can a company implement this and be sure that they can have adoption across all age groups?
For sure. So obviously kind of the millennial side takes care of itself. They're hungry for mobile tools. They're using mobile apps to engage with every other sort of piece of their life. But what we're seeing actually, and you can see this trends in social media, some of the more active Facebook users are some in that midlife and even later on. Smartphone penetration is such that over 90% in most work environments, folks have a smartphone. So between the majority of employees having a smartphone, and most folks, regardless of sort of generation, having this or using a mobile app. So we think that there's a pretty sort of great applicability across generations for this. And we're seeing that played out with employers that we have that have, are hiring recent college grads and other folks that have, 30 years tenure in organizations. At the end of the day, we're kind of lazy as consumers, right? Whatever's quickest, whatever's fastest, we do, right? If something takes more than 5 clicks or 60 seconds to go to, we're just not putting up with it, and we find a better way. And ultimately, regardless of your generation and age, you want to access things fast. And a mobile app right on your home screen that already has you logged in and is secure and you can get to anything within 4 touches is just a simpler, more effective, faster way to get to key company communication and information.
Good question. Andy?
Great job, Santiago.
Thanks, Andy.
I'm biased and obviously sold on everything you're saying up here. As a question, so early on, right, you're going to look at adoption. How many people are engaging with the application, right? But as a CEO, I'm a year in and I'm up for renewal.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing whether or not to continue.
Yep.
Is your intent to figure out a way to connect that adoption to some form of the early stats that you were showing related to operating margin and overall profitability?
Yes.
I care about the bottom line, but right, is that the intent long term?
Absolutely. And so I didn't share this today as part of sort of the Align, Communicate, Connect, and Discover because it's not live yet. But we've been working on an employee engagement measurement construct. Like a good friend, he's not a friend, Lord Kelvin, right? The guy who invented the Kelvin scale. He said you can't improve what you can't measure. And so what we're actually going to roll out soon is a measurement construct so that employees, the best way that employers can measure their employee engagement today is through an annual survey, a once-a-year snapshot of how engaged their employees are. And so what we want to do is unbundle that and do it in a lot more frequent intervals so that leadership has more of a real-time pulse on the engagement of employees. And at the same time, delivering that through push notifications, which is going to yield better participation rates and better response rates. If a company has better data and more real-time data on what's going on with employees, they can take action on really big issues that they have before their top performers leave, and they take a year to put an action plan in place because they just filled out the annual survey. They can react to those big problems and be able to stem retention. And so that's something that we're helping. There's a very, very tight link between employee engagement and employee retention. And if we can show that we're increasing employee engagement in a quantitative, absolute way, then that ties right into employee retention, which companies know how much it costs them to churn someone, how much it costs them to hire someone. And so the dollar-based ROI of our solution is pretty clear at that point.
I do, actually. We weren't featured up there, but, ironically, Fitzmark is actually launching Emplify here in the next few months. And so as a new launch or a new company that hasn't quite utilized the app, so there's a difference between engagement and kind of overstimulating your employees. So with this tool versus kind of an intranet that's just always there and popping up, have you guys done studies or looked at how this has been received in terms of kind of overstimulation or overengagement?
Yeah, we've actually figured out that 2 to 3 times push per week is a really great best practice. And what's great is that we're not just a software tool. We also have Michael here in the crowd somewhere, Michael Vasey. And so he's our customer success manager. He's worked with now tens of companies to help them launch and come up with their strategy. And so he's monitoring analytics on a quarterly basis and kind of making recommendations on A, how to launch successfully and get lots of adoption, and B, if we're sending too much push notifications and open rates are going down, that's a pretty good way to tell if you're sort of over messaging, then he reaches out proactively and says, hey, I would cut back a little bit on push notifications. Something that we just rolled out as well is segmented and group-based push. And so instead of blasting everyone with one message, you can actually send a push message just to one team, just to one location with a geofence, or even just down to one person. And so, for example, today we had to clear everyone out of the middle area. They couldn't work here, but product and sales could stay. And so we just tagged the groups, customer success and marketing, hey, you guys got to go work at Launch Fishers, and that message only got to those folks. And so if you use targeting and segmentation, then you can have these sort of very relevant one-to-one messages with employees, and you're not sort of sending mass email memos. You could customize it and send each employee a different one if you really wanted to take the time to write out a customized message for each of them. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more quick question. John, if you have a question for Santiago?
Sure. So, most HR groups don't necessarily have the deep technical savvy IT person working on the back end. Talk to us a little bit about, it looks really cool and sexy on the front end. How's the back end management work?
Absolutely. So it's no code required whatsoever. We take care of all of the uploading of the apps to both Apple and Google for Android and iOS. And so there's literally no one has to write any code. As far as filling out the content, it's a drag and drop platform. It's as easy, we like to say it's as easy to populate as Facebook as filling out a Facebook status message. And we actually developed the mobile app studio originally for churches and tourism bureaus. And our use case is many times the front desk worker is the one that's populating the tourism apps or the church apps. And so we had to sort of build for that use case and make it very, very easy because those folks don't have technical skills. And so we basically take all the technical side away, and all you do is basically fill out a Facebook post to send a push notification or drag and drop a staff directory, and it gets populated immediately. So make it really easy because we understand that HR teams don't have necessarily developers at most companies, nor folks that want to sit through and wade through very complex system implementations.
Good questions. Todd, we're going to have to save your questions for Santiago for the panel discussion. Santiago, great pitch. Let's give it up one more time for Amplify for hosting us here.
Want more secrets from inside the minds of entrepreneurs and innovators around the world? Subscribe to our YouTube channel here and click the link below. We'll send you our best interviews and strategies for growing your business.